Hey, Doc Savage, how are you?
Well, first, I want to say thank you for having me on. You're one of very few in the media who is willing to listen to me. And the problem is we're not alone. I mean, there's a lot of people who fear that we're being pushed into a direction that none of us want to go into, Dennis.
Well, it just seems so, honest to God, you seem to have to go out of your way, common sense-wise, to not concede some of these points. I mean, really, when you have... I don't know, I started seeing this a while back, but when you start seeing the IRS thing, and then, for God's sakes, our best and our brightest at the VA scandal and how it gets covered up, it's heartbreaking and it's frightening.
Well, for me, the final straw, we can debate everything, you know, and take either side. To me, when he was bringing in the flood of illegal aliens from Central America, telling us they all come here to work, I said, wait a minute, 2-year-olds don't work. The mothers can't work. And then now we see the ED68 virus, which is kind of becoming pretty prevalent in our schools. A kid just died in New Jersey from it. It's directly related viral-wise to the strain in Central America. It's crazy. Now Ebola. Look, Dennis, you know and I know that the first rule of common sense, forget epidemiology, is that you don't bring people in from an infectious zone into a non-infectious zone. It makes no sense.
I know. It's like taking one of those movies like Outbreak and making it a Max Sennett film or something, like Hapless. You know what I mean? All we have is to form some sort of perimeter line. And I agree. When I hear progressives defending 9 to 12-year-olds showing up parentless at a border, I often think, God, we're violating precepts of common sense here. Don't let young children travel internationally alone. It's just crazy to me that those parents are, well, they're doing what they feel is right for the kid. No, what's right for your kid is wherever you're at to stay there till you get somewhere else.
The Ebola thing is finally wakening America up to the fact that the government doesn't know what it's doing. For example, as you well know, the nations surrounding Liberia and other Ebola-stricken nations do not permit travel from those nations into theirs. So what does that tell me? It tells me that African dictators have more common sense than our president does. It makes no sense epidemiologically, medically, commonsensical, and yet he continues to push the notion that we have an obligation to bring people in with Ebola. Listen, they deserve care. We can certainly build hospitals for them and clinics in their home country, but why bring them here? Dennis, I get excited over this. They've sent 3,000 to 5,000 troops there. Logic would dictate that some of them are going to come back asymptomatic with Ebola. This is crazy. It violates every rule of common sense.
Yeah, it certainly does. And now I see that they're going to start testing people for temperatures from Liberia. And I'm telling you, the way the United States works now, and it doesn't work on the nose like it used to. It works in these off weird tangents. Some lawyer down at Hartsfield or somewhere near there is going to get some of these people who are forced to have their temperature taken and say that their rights have been impinged upon. And you know what I mean? And they've been isolated. And it's crazy that we have gotten so smart that we have chosen to completely jettison common sense, as you said, Dr. Savage. Talking to Michael Savage, author of Stop the Coming Civil War, My Savage Truth. Where does it lead, Dr. Savage? They often talk about how jobs that Americans won't do anymore. Participating in a civil war with their fellow citizens, I don't think is a job Americans do anymore. But I do think we might be coming to some sort of national divorce or something. There's just people who are sick of taking care of aberrant notions fiscally and at least feigning it in public so they're not excoriated. I think certain people are saying enough's enough here.
Well, here's the thing. People say, are you crazy? What do you mean civil war? First of all, nobody wants a civil war. Let me be starting. But Dennis, President Obama declared that he was going to be a transformational president from the day he was elected or selected. Mm-hmm. He has been conducting a low-grade civil war against every aspect of society from day one. The radical left agenda is operational in our schools, in our military, in our prisons, in our hospitals. You name it. They've touched it. They've distorted it. And the people know this. When I say the people, not the 50% of those on some form of subsidy, Dennis, but let's say the taxpayers are certainly clearly awakening to the fact that something's very wrong with virtually every system in the government.
Yeah, but you know, Doc, I call you Doc like I know you.
Call me Michael. That's
okay,
fine.
Mike. You know what's weird, though, is when you take a guy who, I know I always look at Romney and people go different ways on a Mormon, all this. I look at a guy who was smart enough to put seed money into Staples, and I think, all right, we need a businessman in there, somebody who can balance call. And 6 million Republicans don't show up because they find something in the Mormonage or they find something in
I hear you.
I'm just thinking, what are you doing? We've got to stop this right now.
I 100% agree. I was so angry by people saying he's a Mormon. So what? Why wasn't Obama's heritage as a Muslim through his father an issue? Why was Romney's Mormonism an issue? Well, we know the answer because the media made it so. But Dennis, look at this picture. When I say civil war, I mean we're in one. We're in one because it's being fought against every tradition in America. That's my position. Dennis, let's analyze this. You've been in the business a long time. You're on TV. You do shows every week. You know what people are thinking. The left says America is a greedy capitalist nation, yet half the population is subsidized. Think about this, Dennis. Half the population is subsidized, yet they consider themselves victims. Yeah. Wait, it gets even better. They think that they're victims, yet their representatives like President Obama run the government. Think about that one. How did that happen? Government media complex. But it gets even better. Why are we cutting benefits for our veterans, paying them 94 cents an hour, no pay raises for our military, and cutting the Army to the lowest level in decades, but we're not stopping the payments or benefits to illegal aliens? Think about this, Dennis. People are very angry, and they do have a target, and his name happens to be B.O. The fact of the matter is, even the Democrats, as you well know, are distancing themselves from him and his policies.
You know, Doc, when you say target, though, you realize that that's all the takeaway is from this interview. See, I can't go to, I don't know, is that just cagey jargon, or what do you mean they have a target and it's Barack Obama? I don't.
Who? What do you mean target?
The word target to me, you know, when Barack Obama said, après that Gabby Giffords thing, we got to lighten the rhetoric, nobody on his side took it seriously, but I did nod and say, listen, he's a crap president. I hope Hillary pays for his sins and doesn't get voted in. But I can't go to the target thing and all that. I'm sorry, you just have to draw the line there.
We're not talking target in terms of target in that sense. I said the Democrats have targeted him, is what I'm saying, to not use him in their campaigns.
Yeah,
that's what I specifically said. They don't want anything to do with him. They want nothing to do with this radical left-wing agenda. I mean, that's pretty evident. The Democrats are saying so, not me.
You know, Doc, as this, and we're talking to Dr. Michael Savage, author of Stop the Coming Civil War, My Savage Truth. I think the last election, you know, people keep talking about, if we don't stop this, I think it's tectonic. I think it happened. I think we're past the continental divide. I think the water falls down the other side at this point. I think it does correct itself, but with something historical, either a 1929 or a, God forbid, 1861 correction. Your thoughts?
Well, 1861 is sort of the theme of the book, which is what I don't want to happen, because nobody wins in a civil war, but I don't see a shooting civil war. What I nightmarishly envision in my most paranoid moments is that insurrection in small pockets is provoked by the radical leftist agenda, and then the government uses that opportunity to seize more power, go after guns, whatever you want to nightmarish scenario it. You can do it any way you want, but I'm not the only one seeing what this man and what his minions are liable to do. Dennis, I want to just say one thing here. I don't do this for fun. It's my last nonfiction book of this type. As you know, I've written many books. But when I spent a year and a half writing this book and doing the research, and I see the war on our borders, language, and culture, who could argue with me today that there is no active war on our borders? He's virtually erased our border with Mexico.
It's crazy.
Okay. The war on our military, that's evident. Now, the left would say that's great. We don't like the military. But when it gets down to areas you mentioned earlier, the war on civil rights, he poses, and the administration poses as a friend of civil rights, but in fact, the civil rights of conservatives have been violated from the day they took power, whether it's the IRS scandal or things of that nature. So wherever you look, there's a sort of low-grade, quote, civil war going on. So what's the purpose of writing the book? It's not to buy a new Mercedes. It's not to buy a yacht. Have had that, don't want it. I think we've got 30 days to change the Senate. And you say, well, come on, Mike. Then you're going to have the tepid Republicans. Yes, Dennis, that's my hope. Why? The Democrats are a closed shop. You can't reach them. They're unassailable. Can't reach them. They will not listen. The Republicans are far more cowardly, and therefore they're more reachable. I say that with somewhat tongue-in-cheek. People say, well, are the Republicans any better? Well, they're weaker,
yes,
and they're more frightened. And you can reach them, and once they win, they're not going to get away with the crap of, oh, well, now that we're in power, we'll just do the same old. They're not going to get away with it. And I think through town hall meetings and straight-out lobbying by the citizens, we can get some chance of regaining many of the aspects of America that we all know are good.
I agree with you completely. I think our side is so spineless at this point in history, they've rendered themselves malleable. That's one good thing about not having a spine, is that you can get in there, and maybe the public will come in at that point and act as a collective Rodin and start shaping these guys into something that resembles a patriot.
I'm sorry, I read last week that they're making a cologne to smell like Fidel Castro and another one to smell like Che Guevara. So I said, well, if they were made a cologne or a man's scent that smelled like John Boehner, it would be the smell of fear. Just call it fear.
Yeah,
and then
he cries a lot. Yeah, Tammy Faye Boehner. And the thing about the Castro cologne is you can put it on in the early 60s and it's still on in the mid-2010s. You don't have to dose. All right, Michael Savage, author of Stop the Coming Civil War, My Savage Truth. Michael's website is michaelsavage.com. Thanks for your time, sir.